Welcome to your Barbados Today Evening News Update for Tuesday, August 6th. So glad you can join us. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Sad and shocked. That's how residents of St Matthias Christchurch today reacted to news of the death of Guyanese Annastacia Natasha Angel. Angel's body was found on Hastings Beach on Monday by police, who said they were notified about the grim find via telephone. Neighbors who declined to give their name said Angel was very reserved and quiet. One resident said it was particularly worrying since she has daughters and granddaughters. Police are continuing investigations into her unnatural death. Students acting out behavioral issues in schools may need professional help to cope with the grief of losing loved ones tragically. That's the view of Education Minister Cynthia Bradshaw as she launched a program today to raise emotional intelligence among teachers. Bradshaw reported that a recent study of close to 200 at-risk students in secondary schools showed that while many of them shared the common experience of losing a loved one, they did not receive needed counseling, and this led to negative behavior.
So every time you see an increase in the murder rate, understand and appreciate that there is some child or some student in your school who is perhaps directly connected in some way to the deceased person. And the reality is that oftentimes children are exposed nowadays to conversations that children should not be exposed to. And so the anger, the frustration, the incorrect and the negative behaviors sometimes are often played out in front of our young people. What then happens is that you as educators then have to deal with them when they come to school. And again, if you are not equipped, emotionally intelligent to be able to identify what is confronting you, then your reactions sometimes help to, well, don't assist the situation, but sometimes exacerbate the situation.
Lawmakers resumed debate on the Data Protection Bill in Parliament today. Leading off the debate, Health Minister Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Bostic warned that if medical and other sensitive data of residents are not protected as technology improved, such data could become what he called weapons of mass destruction. He argued that technology has radically changed the way information is stored, collected, shared, and disseminated, and as a result, there are vulnerabilities that must be dealt with.
I equate the question of records of data with that, for example, of nuclear science, nuclear energy, something that is intended for good. But if it falls in the hands of those who would want to do people harm, then it becomes a weapon of mass destruction. And although data or data protection is not considered in those terms, the misuse of data, the misuse of information, personal information by persons who should not have access to that information would have irreversible consequences, because we are dealing now with personal data, things that are sensitive to the individual. And that makes it a very, very significant thing in my estimation.
Meanwhile, Culture Minister John King suggested that workers in the public service charged with handling sensitive data should be carefully vetted.
Deputy Speaker, neither you nor I have any control over the minds of other people. And you cannot vouch for whoever comes into civil service, police force, customs, wherever it is you can, unless you're going to be having psychological testing on every single person that comes into that space. That, at this particular point, is not part and parcel of what we do, but it may be something we need to look at going forward. Because the persons, again, who are going to be dealing and treating to that data also have to be persons of ethics, persons of good standing. Because even if you put all the protections in place, the person who has access to it still has the access to do with it whatever they want at any particular point in time.
The President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, will arrive here tomorrow for an official 3-day visit around 2:30 p.m. After receiving a red carpet welcome, which includes a 21-gun salute. President Kenyatta, who will be accompanied by his wife, will pay a courtesy call on Governor General Dame Sandra Mason. On Thursday, he will get down to business in bilateral talks with Prime Minister Mia Mottley and several government ministers, where the two sides will explore closer relations in areas of mutual interest.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
To regional news, the Venezuela government is set to face more pressure from the United States. Today, Washington's National Security Advisor, John Bolton, said the Trump administration is ready to impose sanctions on any international company doing business with President Nicolas Maduro. Bolton, who was addressing a summit on Venezuela in the Peruvian capital Lima, emphasized that tougher international action was needed to speed up a transition of power in the country.
Executive order gives authority to the Treasury Department to impose sanctions on any person or business or entity that materially assists the Maduro regime to keep it in power. This is a very rarely used tool by the United States. We've only used it sparingly in the past half century. But the Maduro regime now joins that exclusive club of rogue states like Cuba, Iran, Syria, and North Korea that are subject to that form of sanctions. I think this is a clear demonstration of the resolve of President Trump and the American government to see the peaceful transition of power from Maduro to Guaido.
On the international front, U.S. author Toni Morrison, whose 1987 novel Beloved, about a runaway slave, won a Pulitzer Prize and contributed to a body of work that made her the first black woman to be presented the Nobel Prize in Literature, died today at the age of 88. More in this report from Reuters Television.
She was the first African-American woman to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. She also received the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and the French Legion of Honor. The World on Tuesday morning trailblazing writer Toni Morrison, who explored the African-American experience through such celebrated novels as Song of Solomon and Beloved. Morrison passed away in New York Monday night at age 88 after a brief illness, according to a spokesperson for publisher Alfred A. Knopf. Her novels landed on bestseller lists and were lauded on Oprah Winfrey's book club. Winfrey herself produced and starred in the film adaptation of Beloved in 1998. Morrison was also an editor, an essayist, and longtime Princeton University professor. Her life and works chronicled in this year's acclaimed documentary, Toni Morrison, The Pieces I Am. Her publisher, in a tribute on social media, quoted the writer herself, saying, "We die, that may be the meaning of life, but we do language, that may be the measure of our lives."
And that's news, but for the very latest, visit our website, www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates or like us on Facebook, and sign up for our breaking news alerts via WhatsApp. We're also on Izumi Media and bus terminals, as well as screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. And you can also hear us on Mix 96.9 FM and Capital Media HD 99.3 FM. I'm Fernella Wedderburn. Good evening.